Welcome to another episode of Sophia 380 SL. Today's update is on Doris, the 82 380 SL junker car. Pretty much, here's what it looks like right now. But pretty much this video is just an update of how to remove the things right here in the front. We're removing the radiator, removing the power steering pump, removing the distributor, removing the water pump, pretty much making a bunch of room in the front in order to do some of the engine work I'm gonna attempt to do. And here it is at the moment. It's looking pretty rough, but just kind of want to show you how I got to somewhat of this point, and I'm going to continue making these videos until I can see if I can get this car to somehow run. I'm not sure if that's going to be possible or not, but I'll continue to do what I'm doing. So hope you're enjoying these videos, and here we go. All right, pretty much where we left off last time. I'm going to go ahead and remove some stuff out of the way, continue to move stuff out of the way. I'm going to start with the power steering pump. I'm gonna go ahead and start disconnecting this and trying to move that out of the way. I'm trying to make as much room as possible in order for us to start doing some work on the engine. So let's start with the power steering. I'm gonna go ahead and move this, the distributor cap and all the wires associated with that as well. We can move that out of the way. Whatever I can grab, I'm just gonna start moving out of the way. This is what I've done so far. I've removed the power steering pump, which goes right here. I've removed the distributor and the distributor cap and all the cables that come off the distributor cap to get things out of the way. But just to show you how easy it is to change this power steering pump, I mean, it's just 3 bolts right here. So 1, 2, and this is the one that's needed for the adjustment when you put the belts on. And then there's the in and the out, right? It's right here. So those are just easily threaded on. One here, one here. So super easy. If you ever need a new power steering pump, it's so easy just to change it yourself. Let's go to the power steering pump. I left it in the trunk just to show you. I mean, this is, never had to do this before, but I mean, if you ever needed a new power steering pump, it's so easy. I don't know what I do with it now that I'm looking for it. Oh, right here. Here it is. So dirty. I'm gonna clean this thing up. But yeah, your hose lines go right here and right here. And then your bolting, one goes here, one goes down here, the 2 on the left, and then the 1 on the right. That's it. You just take it out, put a new one in. Seems pretty easy. All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue to remove stuff out of the way. I'm working on removing the radiator. Looks like here's another easy task for somebody just to do on their own. Obviously, I've never changed a radiator before, but it's just a bunch of connections. I mean, like, if you just unconnect everything and throw out the old radiator, put in a new radiator, just plug everything back in and you're kind of done. So what I've done so far is you can see it draining down there. I removed the plug. I did that in my coolant video, right? You saw me flush out the radiator. I removed the plug, and that's this plug right here. I believe it was a 17, and I'm allowing it to drain out. This top radiator, just remove that with a hose clamp. Most of them down below are just removed with hose clamps. Just remove everything, make sure they drain, and then you should be able to pop it off. Popping it off, looking at it, just by looking at it, looks like there's a little clamp right here. Probably just put a big screwdriver here so you can undo that on both sides, and then I think it just lifts off. I hope. It looks like it. Looks pretty easy. So when somebody says change out a radiator, that seems like a pretty easy job to me. But why would you go to a mechanic and spend a ton of money just to change out a radiator when you can just do it yourself? Like, same thing like I just said with a power steering pump. That seems like pretty easy stuff to do. The one I didn't do, like you saw me with Sophia, is I didn't do the water, the water pump. No, not the water pump. It was the water pump. Yeah, because all that stuff is corroded and I was worried about breaking bolts because I've done that before, and that's kind of iffy about breaking bolts. And when I went to go pick it up from the mechanic, he said, yeah, one of the bolts was really hard to take off and I had to torch it and do all kinds of stuff to get it undone. So that's kind of concerning because if one of those snaps, you're kind of screwed. But something like this, there's nothing to snap, I guess. So you could totally do this yourself. Look, Mom, I got the radiator out. That was pretty easy, mostly. So I disconnected all the hoses, 1 up top, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom, and there's 4, 1, 2, 3, and then there's another one on the other side. Anyway, the trick is, let me show you. There's 2 clamps, one on each side. These came off super easy. They just go on the back here. They stick out. You saw them earlier. They stick out like this, and they hold the radiator. You just pop it off, and it popped right off. So that was easy. And then after that, it's just dislodging the radiator, which is a pain in the ass because it's been there for so long. It's like frozen in there because this rubber is attached to this little rail. It's just sitting on a rail, so you just slide it up off the rail. The hard part was it's been sitting for so damn long that it was stuck on the rail. So that was the issue. It's just sprayed it down with some fluid to unstick it. I put some screwdrivers down, tried to unlodge it. Finally, I couldn't get it out. One side, the right side was fine. Left side was not. It was like jam-packed in there. What I did is I ended up using a jack, which is probably not the smartest thing to do, I guess, but used a jack and used a piece of wood, so that way it's not focused on one specific area. I gave it just a little bit of pressure from below and tried to dislodge it from above, and eventually it came out. So pretty easy. So if you ever need to change a radiator, that's how you do it. I mean, that seems pretty simple. Put the new radiator in, attach all the hoses, and fill up the coolant. I guess that's it. Pretty simple stuff. You could totally do this at home. Next item that had to go was the alternator. Again, another simple one. Here's the alternator out. There's this metal cover that's on top of it. Not sure what the point of the metal cover is, but there's one bolt that's here. It's actually attached by a nut that's on the other side. There's another one that looks like this. This is the one for the adjustment. So it's got a little star thing on it. That's for the adjustment. So you can tighten up the belt. Again, it's got a little nut on the back of it. Remove that. This thing comes off. So now you're left with the alternator. The alternator itself, it's being, there on the back is some electrical. One little plug that goes into this electrical outlet. And then you put this metal clamp on it so it holds it in place. And then looking at the alternator itself, there were three bolts. Three? Two? I only see 2. Can't remember now. Let's go here. I think there was one here, and I think one here. Maybe just 2. I guess just 2 holding this entire thing. I think that was for the top part. So anyway, if you had to change an alternator, apparently that's pretty easy too, because you just pull it out, put the new alternator in, put the belt on, and tighten it up, and I guess you're done. So another easy job, if somebody says you need an alternator, that's pretty simple. It's just the fact of getting, stuff out of the way in order to get working on it. Maybe you can do the alternator without removing the radiator and all this other stuff, because all this stuff's on the other side. I guess you don't need to. So, but if you just have to do an alternator, you could probably do it without getting a whole bunch of stuff completely out of the way. Easy. Let's see what we're going to pull off next. Next thing I've removed is this housing, and it seems like this is like a alternator housing, or maybe it's where the alternator sits right here, right to its left. It's surrounded by a bunch of bolts that I went ahead and removed. So I went and removed all the bolts. I placed them back in there so I don't lose them. Let's see, I'm gonna show you where this fits. That fits right into here. And the alternator was like right to its left and attaches to it. So here's some of the holes that are left from where I pulled that out. There are a bunch of bolts there. Also, I've tried to remove this. This is part of, attaches to the water pump. I removed that. That only took 3 short bolts with their washers. 1 here, 2 in the back. Pulled that off. And then, of course, it drained out a bunch of coolant out of there. And then the water pump, which is just a big nightmare because of all the corroded bolts that come out of it. I already had an issue with it last time around with Sophia, and I broke a bolt, so I'm being super cautious. And a couple of them already stuck. So I'm kind of pausing here and trying to figure out what to do. So I've removed one, as you can see here, but there's 1, 2, and then 1 in the back. There's 3 that hold this, and this is where the thermostat sits. That's the last time I broke a bolt off of Sophia, and that's kind of where I stopped there, and then I took it to the mechanic. I'm gonna continue on. I guess the worst thing that could happen is I could break these and then use some sort of tool to pull it out, because it goes from here down into here. As long as there's like a little piece sticking out, I can go and grab into it, or I get a new water pump. I may end up doing that anyway. As far as the water pump attaching it to the engine, there's 1, 2, 3, there's a whole bunch. There's like 8 all the way around. I removed some are stuck. Actually, on this side, I removed all of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on this side, I've removed one down there, but there's a few more. I think there's two or three more holding this thing together until I can release it from the main engine. I'm gonna keep working at this, see where I get. All right, guess who got the thermostat housing off without breaking bolts? Yeah, I did it. 3 bolts all came off without breaking them. The last one, I mean, the one in the back is always the hardest, I think. That's the one I broke last time. I believe that's the one I broke last time. But I torqued the hell out of that thing, and luckily it did not break. I mean, I used the torque wrench on it, and it finally just kind of gave, but didn't snap. And then I was just going a little bit at a time, a little bit forward, a little bit back, a little bit forward. PB Blaster, I was spraying that like crazy. It came off. So I got this thing off. Here's the thermostat. There it is. There's some green coolant, cool. And next is the water pump. So we're moving along. A couple bolts left on the water pump. See if I can do it without breaking anything there. Now this is kind of important. I want to show you this. So this is, I'm trying to remove the water pump, which I'm glad now that I took it in to get removed and then reinstalled in Sofia, because this is a huge pain in the ass to get the water pump off. So not only you have to worry about breaking bolts all the way around on all these bolts, but the bottom one is like almost impossible to get to. So the bottom one, I'm gonna try to see if I can show you. This bottom one is all the way down. I don't know if you can see this down below. There's one more bolt. And what you have to do is you have to turn this shaft all the way till you get this little notch. I don't know if you can see any of this, but there's a little notch. You see that? I don't know if you can see that where my finger is. There's a little notch there to get to that screw. In order to get the notch, you got to remove this big giant pulley that's here, and that looks like this guy. So this giant pulley is all the way down below, blocking your way to get to that bolt. So you got to remove this thing. In order to remove this, take a look at this. Inside, you've got 6 bolts that hold this massive thing in place. And here are the 6 bolts that I just removed to get this thing out of the way in order to get to the last bolt on the water pump. So you turn this. This is the giant one to turn. Let me show you. This one here, this is the giant one to turn. I think it's a 26 millimeter. You got to turn that clockwise until you get that notch. I don't know if you can see it right here. Notch in place, so that way you can get to that last screw and the last nut to get the water pump off. So that was a huge pain in the ass. So replacing a water pump is not as easy as changing out the alternator, the power steering, the radiator. It seems like it's probably more worth it to take it to a mechanic. It's a lot of work. So anyway, keep going. Let me get that last bolt underneath off, and then I have one more up here, and then this thing should be completely free. The water pump should be free. All right, let me get to that. All right, at this point I am so frustrated with this water pump, I said F it. Let's not do the water pump right now. Every time I do the water pump, it just gives me a hard time, and every time I read about it, it just pisses me off. So you know, I keep telling you how easy it is to just change out other things. Water pump is not one of them. Just screw it. Have somebody else do it. So I moved on to the air pump, which was fairly easy. This you can do yourself. The air pump, first electronically with the wires, the wire at the end of the air pump plugs into this guy right here. So I just disconnect it, get rid of some zip ties, and then that goes straight to the air pump. Also on the other end of the air pump, this is, you want to disconnect that, just a couple clamps, just use some clamps here to disconnect this to the air pump. That was pretty easy. There's another hose off the air pump, and I'll show you, that goes all the way up to the little tiny air filter that you have in the housing. That's, you can just keep that hose on there. And then the air pump sits right here, and it's attached to a belt. But pretty easy to remove, just 2 bolts. There's one here, it's a long one, and there's one down here, and it's the one that allows you to adjust to it. And then there's also another connection with just a vacuum line, so just remove that. So let's go show you, I'm gonna go show you the air pump that I removed. It was pretty easy. Look at all these parts I'm coming out of my car. All right, here is the air pump. So the air pump was sitting, yeah, kind of like this. And so let me just show you. Maybe I should show you with an easier background without all this crap in the way. Hang on. Let's move over here. I'm not sure if it's any better, but okay, this is what the air pump looks like. So this hose, giant hose on top, that one right there, that goes all the way to the air housing filter. So the little tiny one, the little rectangle thing. So you could just leave that there. This is the wire that's zip tied all across, like falling apart. It connects to the left fender. Just follow it along, just disconnect it. And then the two bolts, okay, yeah, this is the hose that you can unclamp to get that off. The other one is a little tiny vacuum line that goes to this little damper looking thing. And then there's two bolts to remove. This one, which is the long one, and then the one underneath, which is this guy right here. It's a little confusing. I want to show you, because this is the one that's in order to tighten the belt. But there's two bolts, and I forgot about this one because I totally forgot about this guy right here, and I kept on trying to loosen it with this, and that doesn't work. This is not the one you want to unloosen. This is the one you want to unloosen. I think this is ended up being a 13. So just this one on the bottom, this one on top, and it removes the whole air pump out of the way. Okay, let me get back at it. Well, I just spent like a goddamn hour, maybe over an hour, trying to figure out how to remove this bolt in order to get this harmonic, what is it called, balancer or whatever, off. Well, turns out that this thing is not even connected to this thing, so I don't even need to remove the bolt at this point. I just freaking slip this thing off. That's all you need to do, and I've probably spent like an hour and a half just to figure that out. Damn. So now the bolt, the last bolt on the water pump is finally exposed, and I can finally pull this water pump off. Dang, can't believe it took me so long just to freaking pull that thing right. Let's just slide that thing off. So annoying, but it's off finally. Success. It finally is out. Be ready, when you pull the water pump off, you get a waterfall of coolant that just goes straight down. So it dripped all the way down to the pan. Hopefully most of it made it to the pan, to that little collection pan I got it down there. But it is finally off. That was a real bitch. Yeah, this is what I'm left with at the moment. But changing your own water pump is not fun. I think I paid $600 to have the water pump changed, and that's just for labor. Water pump, and then they installed a new thermostat. I think it's better to pay the $600, honestly. That's a lot of work, and it was pretty difficult getting to that last bolt down there. That was pretty tough. Look at all the different holes. So I think there's like 6 screws or so that holds this thing, maybe 8 screws, a lot of screws. So, but it's finally out. Okay, just to the right of the air pump is this housing right here, and it's being held on by 2 big bolts onto the right, 1 and 2. So this guy sits right down here, right into that area. So 2 big bolts on the right, and then you have 2 little guys that are on the inside of it. I thought they snapped them, but they're actually just 2 little short screws. So 2 down here, 2 on top, and then there's 1 that goes into this little lip. So you just have to unloosen it, and the whole thing just slides forward and comes right off. So that just sits just to the right of the air pump, and the air pump sits into this little housing. Here's what I've learned so far, is that this PB blaster is your friend. I was pretty much shooting this into everything in order to loosen up all the tight nuts and bolts, and make sure you have that around. Here are all the parts I've pulled off so far. A lot of film and a lot of dirt and grease on all this stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and get some degreaser and try to clean all this stuff up. I've got parts all over the place. There's a lot of parts also stuck in the trunk for storage. Here's some more stuff here. Again, it needs some cleaning. There's some valve covers there. There's just parts all over. Another thing that I've learned is trying to keep track of all those bolts and nuts that come off the car. I mean, look at this. finally I had to figure out that I need to put things into little Ziploc bags in order not to lose things. And one of the reasons I'm making these videos is, of course, for you guys to follow along, but really it's for me to figure out how to reassemble this freaking car together at some point, because there are a lot of nuts and bolts and crap that just came out of this car, and I'm not sure if I'm able to put this car even back together. But we will see if we can get it back together at some point. Anyway, hope you're enjoying these videos, and I'll continue to post updates on this Doris project every once in a while. So stay tuned. All right, take care. Catch you on the next one.